I'm Charles Grodin. I'm told to say don't go anywhere, but that feels too aggressive to me. But Profiles will be coming right up, and I guess I'm on Profiles.
Welcome to Profiles. I'm DESI Sanchez. Today's guest is actor, author, and former talk show host Charles Grodin, who became famous for his roles in such films as The Heartbreak Kid, Taking Care of Business, and Ishtar. An award-winning actor in the 90s, Grodin's popularity soared for his role as George Newton in the John Hughes comedy franchise Beethoven. After a short break, we'll join our host Mickey Burns as he welcomes the talented Charles Grodin to Profiles. Welcome back to Profiles. I'm DESI Sanchez. Over his illustrious career, Charles Grodin has been a favorite guest on the talk show circuit, dating back to his numerous appearances with Johnny Carson. Grodin is currently celebrating the release of his new DVD titled The Perils of Show Business. Proceed at your own risk. In the DVD, Grodin offers advice to actors aspiring for a career in show business. So let's join our host, Mickey Burns, on location from the Iroquois Hotel in the heart of New York City as he welcomes the versatile Charles Grodin to Profiles.
Charles Grodin, welcome to our show Profiles.
Thank you, Mickey. Nice to be here.
Been looking forward to meeting you for a long time. I've been a big fan of yours.
Are you reading that off a card?
I'm not. I used to watch your talk show, and I loved it, and you used to have some great guests.
Thank you.
And you continue to do some good work, which we'll talk about today. But for our viewers, you're an actor, you're a comedian, you're an author, and of course you're a former talk show host. Pretty much everything. If you were limited to doing just one of those vocations, which would it be?
A commentator.
It would
what
be.
I do now, which I do from home, and it's for the CBS radio network across the country, 2 million people every day.
Right.
And that is an incredible privilege. The only other people that do it are Charles Osgood, who has the Sunday morning show, and a fellow named Dave Ross, who's got I think a 3-hour talk show in Seattle. And as part of their contract, I guess they wanted to do commentary, and they're sponsored and everything, and I'm not. Okay. And I'm the only one that they have, and I've asked different, without telling them, but I've asked, would you like to have, and I mentioned some well-known friends of mine. They didn't want anybody else, but they allow me to do this for 11 years. It's an incredible privilege.
Now, you grew up,
or attempted to grow up.
In Pittsburgh.
Yes, I made a big attempt.
And attended, which I was surprised to read, the University of Miami. You were a Hurricane for a little bit. My question is...
My wife still considers me a Hurricane.
What attracted you to go to South Florida?
My best friend in high school said, come down here. And within 6 months, there was a dean down there, and he said, you'll get a scholarship. Mm-hmm. So I went down there, and unfortunately, just before that, I had, in my experience of it, I had just lost my father. I say suddenly. I should have known better, but I didn't realize that he was that ill, because he was always ill. But I didn't even realize that because I was 18 years old. Right. But I had a hard time in high school, and the time I spent at the University of Miami, because I found it pretty boring.
Right.
What is this for?
Sure. Good point. Now, you did go on to have an illustrious career as an actor. We should mention that, Charles, in such films as The Heartbreak Kid and Midnight Run. But what I found interesting was that, tell me if this is true, that you almost got the lead role in The Graduate. Somebody told me that.
Yeah. Well, at least you didn't say what's been said to me a lot, that I turned down the lead in The Graduate.
Right.
What happened was I was the #1 choice for the lead in The Graduate. I came in and I read, Mike Nichols was there, and the producer Larry Terman, and Buck Henry was the screenwriter. Yep. And there was a woman, and I read a scene, like, I don't know, an 8-page, 10-page scene. Yep. And after that scene, Mike Nichols called me up and he said, "You're our number one choice. We don't have a second choice." But here's where the problem happened. They, in order to do the screen test, and he says, "This is just for visual reasons."
Yeah.
Okay. But in order to even do it, they want that you have to make a deal before they go to the expense of the screenplay. You have to agree to a contract. So they offered me to star in The Graduate $500 a week. Well, I was making $1,000 if I did 3 days on the show that comes to mind is Felony Squad. And they also would have a 7-year contract with incremental jumps, all at their option.
Right.
And I, who always seemed to put like what's appropriate first rather than being, well, hey, it's The Graduate, you know. And I remember the producer, Larry Turman, called me up and he said, "Don't you realize this is the opportunity of a lifetime?"
Sure.
They were bothered that I didn't just say, "Well, I'll take the $500 a week." I said, "Well, it doesn't seem appropriate to me that I'm taking a pay cut to star in a big movie." So okay, so we agreed. I think it got to like $1,000 a week.
Yeah.
So we agreed to that, and next thing I know, my doorbell rings, and there's this like, I don't know, 10, 12 pages, and I'm supposed to be there tomorrow morning, and here's Mike Nichols' phone number if you want to call him and talk to him about it. So I called him. I said, "Mike, you saw me read this. Now I have to memorize the 10 pages. That's different.
I got some work to do."
That's you can't really be at that level. That's the level which I've done when I started. Like that, you could be that good. That would get you at a soap opera level.
Yeah.
That's not what they saw me do in the office because the words were in front of me, so I could get involved.
Yeah.
And I don't think he frankly knew what I was talking about. So I go in the next day and I sit down on the bed with Catherine Ross, who played the girl in the. And I remember him standing there saying, "What do you think the event of the scene is?" I said, I don't even know the lines. I mean, I'm not really prepared to dissect what the event of the scene is, I said, "Can I improvise?" He said, "No."
Oh, jeez.
He says, "Let me see you." So whatever they filmed was with me. It was just somebody struggling to remember what's the next line. Then he says to me, "Let me see you jump up and down on a bed." I said, "Well," and again, I don't mean this to be a wise guy, and I didn't say this to him. I said, "Well, I mean, anyone could jump up and down on a bed, but I mean, what is in other words, by the time we got finished, he thought I was going to be the most difficult
person to work
in the
with. Right.
And the funny part about it, and I mean this with affection because I went to school with Dustin Hoffman.
Yeah.
But Dustin Hoffman is known as the most difficult
Is that
guy.
true?
Oh, brilliant! He's a brilliant actor. I mean, we were in class together for years, and I knew him, but he's the guy that's going to give you like, and you notice that was 1967, and they've both done Mike and Dustin have done a lot of things since 1967, but they never worked together again.
After that,
but I worked with Mike a couple of years later in Catch-22.
Well, interestingly, you have a brand new DVD coming out, and it's titled "The Perils of Show Business," and nobody knows more about show business than you do, and it's called "Proceed at Your Own Risk." Right at the top of the DVD, this is what you said. You said, "Most acting coaches stink."
Well, not that I didn't say that word.
Oh.
But that's what I'm saying.
Okay.
I didn't use that word. Most actors.
I'm sorry.
I never met an acting coach at. Look, at the University of Miami, I got up and I did a monologue from Friends, Romans, Countrymen from Julius Caesar. I remember walking to the theater thinking, I wish the ground would open up and swallow me because I was so nervous. But I don't know what the heck happened. I got up there and I belted it out. And it was about injustice, oddly enough. And the guy says to me, his name was Fred Koch, the head of the department. He said, "If you work hard, there's no reason, there's no limit to how well you could do." And I had no idea at the time that it would be 6 years before anyone else said anything nice to me.
Wow.
Because then I went to the Pittsburgh Playhouse where they basically made fun of me because that's when the method was coming in, and the idea was to try to live the part, embody the character.
Yeah.
And I didn't know how to do it, and they didn't know how to do it. They never made livings as actors,
Yeah.
but I still didn't know how to do it. And then I went on to Uta Hagen's class. I talk about this in this Perils of Show Business, and she's got us carrying imaginary suitcases and opening imaginary windows. And I, again, not trying to be a wise guy, but consistent. When you look back, I say, "Excuse me, Miss Hagen, why are we carrying imaginary suitcases and opening imaginary windows? And she hated my guts.
Yeah, sure.
I mean, certain people, I mean, I think she came from Germany.
Yeah.
And certain people, if they're not, where I am, I mean, it's perfectly okay. You can ask anything. Why are you wearing this? Ask me anything you want.
Right,
I wouldn't take it. I wouldn't take it as a shot. But I stayed there for 3 years, and then I go on to Lee Strasberg, and he wants us all to take an imaginary shower. By that time, I had taken so much heat, I didn't take an imaginary shower, but I just decided not to say anything. And then here's the 6 years later from Miami.
Yeah.
He's criticizing it. Somebody could be brilliant. There were a lot of brilliant people in the class. There wasn't a shortage of talent.
Right.
And he said he's criticizing somebody. You think they're just going to disappear into a little puddle of water. Mm-hmm. And he goes like that, and I'm sitting over there. He goes, do what he does. And I looked around to see if there was someone sitting behind me. And that was like, I never heard that. And then I opened 13 years later on Broadway, and same time next year, and he was the first person back in my dressing room. And I said, do you remember me? No, he'd had thousands of students. He said, of course I remember you. Then they invited me to join the Actors Studio.
Wow.
I accepted, but I don't go.